Berlin, January 12, 1938. Field Marshal Blomberg marries 24-year-old Margarethe Grün at the War Ministry, with Hitler as witness and Göring as best man. 12 days later, a police file surfaces at Alexanderplatz documenting Grün's prostitution record and pornographic photos. Police President Helldorf passes it straight to Göring. What followed was the coordinated destruction of Germany's military high command. A quiet civil wedding at Berlin's War Ministry set the stage for a political earthquake. On January 12, 1938, Field Marshal Werner von Blomberg married Margarethe Grün in a brief ceremony inside the imposing Terpitzufer building. The guest list was as exclusive as it was revealing. Adolf Hitler signed the marriage register as witness, with Hermann Göring at his side. Official records from the Bundesarchiv confirm only these two as witnesses, underscoring the event's political weight despite its intimate setting. The marriage was promptly entered into the registry, linking the Reich's war minister, his young bride from Alexanderplatz, and the Nazi leadership in a single bureaucratic act. What seemed at first a personal milestone for Blomberg quietly exposed his private life to the highest circles of power. The documentation created that day, names, signatures, and the registry entry, would soon become potent ammunition, transforming a routine marriage into the opening move of a campaign to dismantle the independence of the German army. A police dossier in Berlin's Alexanderplatz precinct transformed a private marriage into a national crisis. The file, catalogued as K-1238, began in 1932 under the direction of Kriminalrat Arthur Niebe and was updated repeatedly through January 1938. Inside, police photographs from brothel raids, booking sheets, and a series of conviction records trace Margarethe Grün's history of prostitution and related offenses. The arrest sheets, stamped by the Berlin Kripo and signed by senior officers, documented her repeated detentions between 1934 and 1936. Each entry reinforcing the gravity of her criminal record. On January 15, 1938, just days after her marriage to War Minister Werner von Blomberg, the file received a new update, linking Grün directly to the highest circles of the Reich. The existence and contents of this dossier were never a matter of rumor or innuendo. They were established facts, preserved in the Landesarchiv Berlin and confirmed by chain of custody annotations. For 12 days, the fate of the German officer corps hung on the discovery and circulation of these documents, evidence that would soon shift from bureaucratic record to political weapon. A single memorandum set the machinery of state intervention in motion. On January 24, 1938, Police President Wolf Heinrich von Helldorf transferred the complete Margarethe Grün police dossier to Hermann Göring, attaching a cover note that described the contents as a matter of national security. The memorandum, preserved in the RSHA Helldorf papers, marked the moment when personal scandal became a tool of political leverage. The following day, January 25, 1938, Göring carried the file, including police photographs and conviction records, into the Reich Chancellery. According to the Reich Chancellery log, Göring briefed Hitler directly, laying out the evidence and pressing for immediate action against War Minister Werner von Blomberg. This briefing was not a passive relay of information, it was a calculated act transforming a police file into an executive weapon. Within hours, the fate of the entire German officer corps had shifted from private embarrassment to a crisis at the highest level of government. The removal of Werner von Blomberg signaled the collapse of the last protective barrier between the Wehrmacht and the Nazi Party. On January 27, 1938, Hitler accepted Blomberg's forced resignation, ending the career of the war minister who had once served as the army's institutional shield. The exit was not simply a matter of disgrace, it was managed with bureaucratic precision. Financial records from the Bundesarchiv, file RMW 1938-K13, confirm a severance payment of 50,000 Reichsmarks, authorized on February 15th, and earmarked as both hush money and compensation for immediate exile. Blomberg's departure was not voluntary. A formal order directed him to leave Germany for Capri, with all expenses covered by the Reich Treasury. This payoff, documented in the War Ministry's finance ledger, underscores how the regime converted scandal into a tool for political engineering. With Blomberg gone and the War Ministry left leaderless, a power vacuum opened at the heart of German military command, one that would soon be filled by officials loyal not to the army, but to Hitler himself. The confrontation with General Werner von Fritsch inside the Reich Chancellery marked a new phase in the campaign against the army's independence. On January 26, 1938, Fritsch was summoned without warning to Hitler's private office, as recorded in the Reich Chancellery Visitor Register and the OKH Daily Diary. Present were Hitler, Goering, and Fritsch himself, a configuration that signaled the gravity of the moment. Before any formal investigation had begun, Fritsch was accused of serious misconduct based on a Gestapo file, the details of which had not yet been revealed. The official minutes confirmed that Fritsch denied the allegations on the spot, refusing to submit to the intimidation. The Army High Command, blindsided by the abruptness of the summons, recorded its shock in internal notes. This public challenge to the Army's commander, staged before a shred of evidence was examined, sent a chilling message to the officer corps: institutional honor could be shattered at the regime's discretion. The groundwork was laid for a fabricated legal case, and the tactic of scandal as a weapon shifted from minister to commander, escalating the pressure on Wehrmacht leadership. The paragraph 175 frame up against General Werner von Fritsch exposed how Nazi authorities weaponized Germany's anti-homosexuality law to break the army's chain of command. On January 26, 1938, a Gestapo dossier compiled by Otto Schmidt was revived under Reinhard Heydrich's orders, alleging that Fritsch had violated paragraph 175, a criminal offense under German law. The accusation rested on a misidentification. The name in the original investigation was Achim von Frisch, not von Fritsch, but the SS deliberately blurred this distinction to implicate the army's commander. Schmidt's report, filed in Bundesarchiv R58, included a forged confession and a fabricated witness statement, both later shown to be the work of Gestapo clerks. Despite the lack of credible evidence, the Reichskriegsgericht convened a trial on March 12, 1938. The court acquitted Fritsch unanimously, as recorded in docket 18138, but the verdict was suppressed and the acquittal buried by a press blackout. The case established a new precedent. Senior officers could be destroyed by manufactured charges, regardless of legal outcome. The chilling effect on the officer corps was immediate. No one was immune from political prosecution, and the SS had demonstrated its ability to neutralize even the most senior commanders without proof or due process. The simultaneous collapse of the army's independence was no accident. It was the product of intersecting ambitions at the highest levels of the Nazi state. Hermann Göring saw in the Blomberg scandal a direct path to control over the war ministry, a position he coveted as the next step in his ascent. Heinrich Himmler, leading the SS, was determined to break the Wehrmacht's autonomy and extend his reach over Germany's last semi-independent institution. Reinhard Heydrich, architect of the Gestapo's rise, sought to establish his security apparatus as the ultimate authority, even over generals. Internal correspondence and biographical records reveal that these three men coordinated their efforts, each pursuing personal objectives but recognizing the necessity of joint action. Letters from Himmler to Göring, dated January 1938, explicitly urged that both the Blomberg and Fritsch cases be pushed forward together to prevent any coordinated army defense. Meeting minutes preserved in the Bundesarchiv show that Heydrich was tasked with producing the Gestapo evidence required to destroy Fritsch. The result was a deliberate, coordinated strike. Scandals were engineered not just to remove individuals, but to dismantle the army's power base in a single, coordinated operation. The existence of primary source documents leaves no doubt that the destruction of the army's independence was a coordinated operation, not a series of accidents or isolated vendettas. The minutes of the Nuremberg Conference, catalogued as PS 386, record a high-level meeting in late January 1938 where Hermann Göring, Heinrich Himmler, and Reinhard Heydrich openly discussed the removal of both Blomberg and Fritsch. The document lists all three by name and outlines a dual-case strategy. Blomberg would be brought down by exposure of his wife's criminal record, while Fritsch would be targeted with a resurrected Gestapo file. Alongside these minutes, a letter from Himmler to Göring dated January 20th, 1938, preserved in the Bundesarchiv R100 series, urges that both scandals be pushed forward simultaneously to prevent the army from mounting a coordinated defense. With this archival evidence, the campaign against the Wehrmacht's autonomy stands revealed as deliberate, premeditated proof, a coup that paved the way for the legal and institutional overhaul that followed. A single executive decree on February 4, 1938, redrew the lines of power inside Nazi Germany. The Reichskanzlei order, catalogued as Werf 12/1938, abolished the war ministry, ending nearly a century of military tradition in a single stroke. In its place, Hitler established the Oberkommando der Wehrmacht, OKW, placing himself as supreme commander and appointing Wilhelm Keitel as chief. The decree's language made clear that all armed forces now answered directly to Hitler, bypassing the old structures that had shielded the army from political interference. On the same day, personnel orders signed in the Bundesarchiv record the forced retirement of 14 generals and the reassignment of 46 more, a purge unprecedented in peacetime. Walter von Brauchitsch replaced Fritsch as army commander, completing the transformation. What had begun as ad hoc purges in January became, with this decree, a permanent system. The Wehrmacht was now a tool of the party, its autonomy erased by law. The consequences would echo through every failed attempt at resistance in the years to come. The aftermath of the 1938 scandals shaped the fate of every attempt to resist Hitler from that moment to the end of the war. The abolition of the war ministry and the creation of the OKW under Hitler's personal command stripped the Wehrmacht of its last institutional independence. The Beck coup plan of 1938 was left without senior allies, its network shattered by the purge of 14 generals and the forced retirement or reassignment of dozens more. In 1939, Hans Oster's efforts to mobilize resistance failed, as operational authority had already shifted to the OKW, making coordinated action impossible. By 1944, the Stauffenberg and Tresckow networks operated in isolation, their ranks thinned by years of targeted removals and constant fear of SS surveillance. The July 20th plot became a desperate last stand, not a true opportunity. The decisive chance to stop Hitler had died in early 1938, when political manipulation and state-orchestrated scandal dismantled the only institution with the authority and cohesion to challenge the regime from within. Across these pivotal events, one truth emerges. Institutional power can be shattered not by armies, but by targeted manipulation and fear. The Wehrmacht's independence was destroyed in Berlin's backrooms, not on the battlefield. This moment reveals how quickly a nation's last restraint on tyranny can vanish.